Podcast. I'm your host, Mike. This is my co-host, Scott. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. Now we don't have to switch back and forth. I do the
Yes,
fuck I want.
Thank Christ. Oh my god. What a fucking nightmare. Today we're going to be discussing the 2000 movie Hollow Man. Almost said Hollow Knight.
You said that all day today. You've
I
literally
know.
said that all day today.
I kept fucking up the entire time. I even Googled it last night and I typed Hollow Knight instead of Hollow Man. I don't fucking know why. Like, I barely played Hollow Knight.
So we're doing Hollow Man in general because I wanted to do an Invisible Man movie, but I don't want to do the newest one because we both saw that not that long ago. I don't want to rewatch it because everything I've seen is so fresh. If we're going to do a movie, I want it to be something that we've both just seen. It's fresh in our heads, and I don't really want to rewatch that right away. It's not not interesting, but I don't think it's necessary personally. And this is a film both you and I have not seen, so I'd rather us do something clean and fresh than a film that we both watched not that long ago.
Yeah, and this one is one of those situations, kind of like the fucking Guillermo del Toro movie that's basically a Creature of Black Lagoon movie, and the like Nosferatu, where they don't have the rights to the character that they're trying to make a movie out of, so they kind of made their own version of the character. So it gives you the ability to have similarities, but also go your own way with it.
No, I definitely agree. It's 100% an Invisible Man movie. It's just funny because they bought the rights to the book called Hollow Man, even though it's got nothing to do with it, and they just 100% said, Invisible Man, we're going to go with that. It's exactly that premise of the movie. They make a reference / joke to the Invisible Man in the movie.
Yeah, a very, very dirty, unnecessary
we'll definitely get
joke,
into that later.
But
I would like to say that I'm pleasantly surprised with the movie. I was interested in it, but I didn't expect much. I've seen clips of it. Not really clips, but when I was younger, I remember walking into like a living room with like family watching a movie, and they were watching this, and they were watching at the time the most uncomfortable scene in this movie to me. And I didn't watch the whole thing, but I'm like, oh, seems like something I don't give a shit about right now. So I didn't watch it, and I walked out. But I knew they were watching Hollow Man, and that was my only memory of the film. So went in with that, watched the movie, pleasantly surprised, not so pleasantly, uncomfortable. It's, It was definitely something. It's an experience. It lives through the 90s 100%, whether it's good or bad.
Literally, I was texting you when I started, because I'm sure I started before you. And I texted you, the first thing I texted you about the movie was, this is about the most 90s, 2000s movie I've ever seen in my life.
I thought it was
the
funny
music,
you said that.
The editing, and because it was the very beginning of the movie. So it's him with his Porsche driving down the street and all that stuff, blasting
shitty 90s song.
Yeah, I was sitting there like, this takes the cake from any 90s horror movie I've ever seen, as far as just like, I am a 90s movie.
Yeah, 100%. I thought it was funny you said that because the film came out in 2000, so
in 2000,
filmed in 99, so it's the perfect antithesis of 90s 2000 dog shit.
Yeah, but it's not dog shit.
It's not dog shit. It is a really, really uncomfortable movie. And I think
100%.
the one thing we should touch on first before we jump into the movie is, the first thing you asked me before I even started watching the movie is, does this count as horror?
Yeah. So when I got to work today to talk to you about this, I didn't even intend to talk to you about most of the movie. I just wanted to pose that specific question. And we just wound up talking about the entire movie. But there's a lot of this movie where it for a while, it feels like it's more of a sci-fi thriller than a horror film. Especially towards the end, it feels like they kind of just like, hey, I liked Aliens, let's do Aliens, but without the sheer amount of aliens. It just feels like an action movie towards the end. But there's a lot of sequences, we were talking about it, and the more I thought about it, the more I came over to your side of thinking, because there's a lot of sequences that feel like slasher sequences, especially the uncomfortable scene that we'll get to with the POV shots, reminding you of literally any slasher movie post-Halloween. And even towards the end, before the big climax, there's still sequences where he's just picking people off one by one, and it feels very slasher like. So I at the beginning of the day was not in the camp of this as a horror film. It felt a lot more like an action movie. But as it went on and we discussed it, and as I thought about it, I definitely fell into the camp that this is a horror film, but it kind of rides the line at times.
So the way we're gonna start this off, I don't want to get off track, but this is gonna be important because it's gonna be kind of like criteria for the rest of the podcast. Is that when we're talking about what's a horror film and what's not, we've had discussions about Seven, Silence of the Lambs, other films like that. One of the big ones we've been talking about is, does the first Godzilla movie count as a horror film? And the way I always look at things personally is that we have to look at the film in the decade. The reason I don't count Silence of the Lambs or Seven is that even in that decade, it doesn't take the identity of horror. It doesn't utilize that. You can use Godzilla and say, in that time period, most of the horror films were science fiction. How are they viewed as a horror film, though? Creature, it's a science fiction movie, but through and through, it is a horror film. The science fiction aspect comes second. You could argue that maybe in Godzilla, because the science fiction is so estranged, but there's definitely an argument to be made.
Yes.
Silence of the Lambs, I don't think there's much of an argument. Seven, I don't think there's nearly anything of an argument. In this film, if it came out today, it wouldn't be a horror film. 100% it's not. But
Yeah.
in the 90s, a lot of horror films were just structured like that. The horror does take a backseat sometimes to some of the, like, not just hijinks, but like other things they're focusing on the movie, the science mumbo jumbo stuff.
Yeah.
But when they do the horror elements, it's very fitting of its time period, and I think it does just fall into kind of like slasher territory.
Yeah, and it makes sense for it to land in that territory too, because I mean, you're an invisible man. You're gonna go if you're gonna go around killing people, it's gonna feel like a slasher movie, and theoretically, it should be even more scary because you can't see the person. But yeah, I agree. I started the day off not thinking that it was really a horror movie, especially because right in my mind, my freshest part of the movie was the finale, the very end of the movie with the elevator. I was like, this feels so not like a horror film. But most of the movie, especially after the change, there's a lot of horror aspects to it. Definitely.
I would think it's funny that the new film Invisible Man, it would be more similar to the original, but if you think about it, that film borrows a whole lot from Hollow Man versus the original Invisible Man. The way some of the characters interact with who they think is around them, but they don't know. Some of the camera work. That new movie has a lot of techniques or just ideas that they transferred over from Hollow Man. And that's why I think it's incredible that Hollow Man came out in 2000, because some of those tricks still work great in 2020.
Yeah, it was one of the big talking points that we had today about the movie was how well the visual effects have aged.
Yeah,
this is a 21-year-old movie, and some of these effects, I mean, some of them are a little bit iffy at times, but for the most part, you have very detailed visual effects of the human anatomy.
and it does look like 90s CG. Like, it does look kind of like
a little bit glossy.
Yeah, glossy. That's a good way to put it. But it doesn't change the fact it's amazing the way it works.
It's impressive still.
And we don't, like, who's to care how glossy it is, because maybe the serum makes it look like that in the movie. You can lend yourself to the disbelief in the film by the way it's presented to you, and it works fine.
I'll say it never took me out of the movie.
100%. I will say some of the CG with, like, the gorilla masked over the suit doesn't look very good.
Yes, the CGI version, when the gorilla just comes back into being able to be seen, it's CGI and it's very noticeable, and then after that it's a person in a suit and it's very noticeable.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's probably the weakest stuff in the movie. Even the stuff with, like, when he's coated in water, like, that shit should look dumb, but it really works.
It does. A lot of that, like I said, a lot of those things, like in the last scene with, the rain coming, well, not rain, but, the sprinklers coming down, you definitely know they took inspiration for that when they did 2020 Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Like, it's just cool that a lot of these tricks just work so well. They're like, well, we'll just bring it over. And for this time period in 2000, The budget was 90 million and they put 50 million on the VFX. And it really shows that they cared and put a lot of effort into it.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it too, looking at the way the film is plotted out, they deliberately spend most of the film in that bunker. So they don't have to pay for these large, extravagant set pieces outside of the. I mean, like you get the shots of him driving cars and stuff, but most of the action takes place in very specific environments and very enclosed environments that they built and then just kept using.
It felt
So
personal because of it too.
yeah, it's very smart filmmaking because it's very, very financially conscious, especially in that time period with how visual effects were pretty new. Those kinds of visual effects, I should say, CGI was pretty new. Uh, it took a lot of time and money to put into effects that are convincing back then. Jurassic Park had the same kind of issue. They pioneered a lot of CGI with like the Abyss and T2, but that stuff took money, and Paul Verhoeven knew where to put his money in this movie, and it all works. I mean, like he didn't have to pay for huge cast members aside from Kevin Bacon at the time for the time because obviously Josh Brolin went on to be fucking Thanos, so he's a much more high profile actor now. But
Elizabeth Shue's career kind of backed off at that point too.
Yeah, so they didn't have to pay too much for actors. They put the bulk of the money into the visual effects, and it shows.
I gotta say,
to the point that you were telling me earlier today that they use that shit for anatomy and
they took the diagram that they did for the Invisible Man when he transforms back to human and vice versa, that they use that diagram for scientific research afterwards because it's such a good, perfect diagram.
Yeah.
And I think they modeled the diagram so closely as they could to Kevin Bacon's body, which I find to be astounding. It's pissed him off to take through all that time and go through it like, okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, I bet.
Make the shaft wider.
It's just pretty crazy watching it. Watching the sequences, because they do it with the gorilla, they do it with him. Just watching how detailed it is, and they're not short sequences because they go layer by layer of your anatomy, and it's all pretty intricately done. And there are dramatic moments that happen during those sequences where the people in the room are required to interact with something that's not actually there. Mm-hmm. And it's very impressive that their eye lines and everything, like when they're doing the defibrillator on the gorilla, it looks like they're actually placing it in the right place. It's not like because they're obviously suspending it in midair, or maybe in the seat they have the gorilla suit in a blue suit or something. They painted the gorilla blue to cut him out. But if they didn't, it's very impressive that they managed to really make that all convincing, especially in the time period, because again, the CGI was pretty much in its infancy still.
It's funny you brought up about like, oh yeah, keeping the eye line and everything, and the skeleton. So when they had to pick up Kevin Bacon's like body when it's a skeleton form, they made a cast for a skeleton, but they made it metal, so it was heavy when they picked it up. It would feel like a human body.
Wow.
That's such a
That's
cool
pretty cool
thing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, a lot of the things they did for like the VFX or just trying to work around it so it made it feel real and have weight to it is really like genius.
Verhoeven, he was just on a different level at times, man.
When they're talking to Kevin Bacon and he's not there, what they did is they put a speaker in the background that would have his voice, so they had some direction to look in.
Oh yeah, it's good because a lot of people. I was watching somebody. Oh, it was Robin Williams. I was watching something with him, and he was talking about how he had to talk to Tinkerbell, and he's like, it wasn't always the actress; it was some guy on set reading lines as monotone as possible. So it's like, oh, I gotta react to that.
Yeah,
and it's good that they got Kevin Bacon to do it because it at least gives them something to react to that's accurate to what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, it's funny when they're talking about how they had to make the movie. A lot of the time, they were thinking, "Oh, he doesn't have to be on set that much, just a few scenes." And as they're doing it, it's like, "Okay, this is kind of tough. Maybe we should put him in more." I'd have to assume that putting him in the latex and everything, they wouldn't have done it as often if it didn't feel necessary to the film. I'm sure, like, they probably would have made him invisible more, but the fact that it does take away from so much of the drama with him giving a presence and being on screen. It felt way too, ironically, hollow for most of the other
giving
actors.
Giving a real performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His voice is great in the film too.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much like power he has in his voice until you don't see him on screen.
Yeah, the nice thing about when he gets the latex mask is that while it is a bit restrictive for his face, it does give him the ability to emote in a lot of ways. So it makes the vocal performance come across even stronger because of the fact that there's something you can put, because a lot of stuff with us as a society, I feel, is like we need to see the face, and not seeing the face it's tougher to connect to the performance.
Yeah.
So it's good that they got him in some kind of an apparatus so that he could perform visually, because like even like with like classic Invisible Man garb, like there's not really much emoting you can do through it a lot of the time.
I mean, Claude Rains does a fantastic job with what he has, but it's tough.
That's just a testament to how great Claude Rains is.
That's kind of the thing about designs in general for like characters. People don't realize, but the reason Batman doesn't have white eyes in live action is because it's tougher for an actor to get across like anger or any other like tough emotion when you can't see his eyes. That's why they usually leave it open so you can see him emoting more. It gives the actor more of a presence. Same thing with designs like this. I love the first Invisible Man. The design is fantastic. The whole mummy wrap and the sunglasses, it's cool, it's really niche, and it's fun. But you want to talk about having a character feel so innately like disjointed from humanity and terrifying on presence, you give him a latex mask where you can't see his eyes and his mouth hole. He looks so out of it.
Off-putting.
Very, very off-putting. The entire presence of him is just so disconcerting, where you don't want to look at him. And when you hear it with Kevin Bacon's voice, it's just so uncomfortable when he gives such a crazy performance.
Yeah, speaking of Kevin Bacon, you should probably talk about Kevin Bacon, because he plays a magnificent douchebag in this movie, but he does a lot of great work, especially post-change, vocally and physically.
I don't like the character before he goes through the change, because he's just a 90s dick, and he's not really a character. He's just, what can't Sebastian do? You put a problem in his face, he spits on it and throws it back at you and says, fuck you, I ate a Twinkie. Like, that shit is not fucking cool. Everything about him, it's like, oh man, I can't, wow, Sebastian's so fucking cool. It's like, yeah, Sebastian rocking the mullet. Oh, it's not that cool. Like, it's just 90s cheese, and it's weird to throw that as the character in the beginning, because I can't get attached to that. I just dislike the idea of that. But you get rid of the 90s cheese, and then you make him a real fleshed out, I won't say human, but developed character. I can get inside that character. He may be a fucking murderer, but I can get into that murder.
He's more than a murderer.
Yeah, but, I think we should take a break on watching films about fucking rapists. It's getting a little uncomfortable at this point.
Yeah.
Two out of what? 8? Like, what the fuck, man? That's a 1 in 4 chance. I'm watching a film today. That's my 4th one. Oh, is it going to be a rapist in it? Probably.
Not 3. Evil Dead, tree rape.
Well, that's not a person.
Not a person, but it's still...
I can't scold a tree, unfortunately.
I mean, you could. It wouldn't do anything for you, but I wouldn't recommend it.
I got time.
Yeah, no. But he's... See, I don't mind the fact that they characterize him as this kind of just weirdo douchebag at the beginning. Well,
they do that too.
Exposed. At the beginning, but it's exposed even worse later. But I agree. But I don't mind that so much, especially because of what comes after.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that happens after he turns kind of informs on that initial character, which makes it kind of in reverse better.
I agree.
But yeah,
the serum 100% makes that character go through a change that is gradual, but it feels like it makes sense. One thing I want to address is that this movie, Kevin Bacon's performance is awesome, The
Oh
character
yeah.
is despicable.
Yes.
And I will say 100%, if you're female, you probably might not want to watch this movie.
It's
Like,
fucked.
you're going to have a tough time getting through sexual assault, misconduct to female workers, rape,
Positive. Yeah.
just degrading to females in general a lot of the time. Like, a lot
Yes.
of the stuff in this film, because it's in the 90s and 2000s and women weren't really respected during film at this time, this movie showcases a lot of that, so it might be tough to get through. If you want to take a chance and say, I love Kevin Bacon, I want to see him give a great performance, go for it. But, like,
Definitely put that in
heavy,
context and understand what you're getting into.
heavy disclaimer.
Yeah. He is the weirdest kind of combination of genius and misogynistic asshole.
I hate to
And
say it, but a little too often does that combination go together.
A little too often, and in this movie, a little too often, it goes a little bit more for the misogynistic douchebag
Yeah,
than the genius.
a little bit too much.
But
Both times, when we were watching and texting each other, we both would say, this is uncomfortable.
yes,
And let's say we are both almost in our mid-20s and male, and this is uncomfortable for us. So, like, I wouldn't imagine being a female, let alone a teenage female, watching this movie.
you see, you had context for that and kind of expected some of that going
Well,
into
yeah.
it. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I had no fucking clue when we started this movie that was going to happen. So when the first scene of that happens, I was just sitting there on my bed watching it and being like, "Oh
Yeah.
no!"
I didn't know that was going to happen.
No.
I
Yikes!
So-
That was a secret that made me super uncomfortable,
Yeah.
especially because you know that they did that with CGI, so like they modeled it. It's just like, oh my god, that's a
even-
lot.
I also, it's just the fact that, like, she hates him.
She hates him. She doesn't like him before,
Yeah, so, like,
so it definitely didn't give him any points.
I'll say this much. I know a lot of women that don't like the 2020 Invisible Man. I'm never going to recommend this movie to them.
Yeah, no, I can't. No, it is a super misogynistic movie. It's not a movie that condones it though. Like the whole point is it's bad. That doesn't make it comfortable to sit through.
Is a female, and she's
Yes.
she's a strong female, and not in the. It's not one that they're trying to say like, look how cool she is. No, this is a full developed character who's
Yes.
gone through a lot, who's gone through change, and says, I'm not taking any more bullshit. This is a strong woman that showcases that in the film. And
That's
she's
another
elite.
thing too. That's another thing too, because we were talking about how like, is this movie horror? Is it not? She is the definition of a final girl.
100%.
Although she's a strong character before the finale, so she's a little bit more developed than most final girls
Yeah.
are. But Elizabeth Shue is really really good in this, and it makes me surprised that her career just kind of disappeared after this.
Yeah, like you haven't seen a whole lot with her in it, you know?
Yeah, just Back to the Future 2 and 3 in this.
Yeah, and at that point, she's already like, well, I'd say she has a bigger role in 2 than the first one, but she barely has any role at all in 3.
Yeah, she's only at the end.
I would say most people know her for Karate Kid, probably Hollow Man if they saw them. She's in The Boys now, which is a really popular TV show. I know her because of Cocktail with her and Tom Cruise, you know. Fuck yeah, but, you know, she's been in a lot of things. In the 80s, after Karate Kid, she was hot. She was a big deal. And
Yeah.
then putting her in Back to the Future, you know, that's a huge name. And then shortly afterwards, like, not a lot happens with her career. And it sucks because you see this movie and you think, wow, she's awesome. She's really fucking kicking ass.
Yeah,
Like,
she's
physically
great.
and, you know, in her performance. Like,
Yeah, she's great. Her dynamic with Kevin Bacon's character Kane is it's a really well acted dynamic between the two, and they have good chemistry for this specific type of relationship. She doesn't take his shit after a certain point. There is a point where she kind of puts up with it for the project, and that's really sad to watch. I love her. I love the way that they have a back and forth. There's some really really uncomfortable shit with them that happens later on in the movie. If it's involving Kevin Bacon at this point in the movie, we're just going to say that it's probably uncomfortable.
yeah.
Although there's one specific scene that you pointed out that you reminded me of that was really funny, with him scaring the shit out of the kids in the car.
I like that scene a lot.
That's it's so funny. Also, the scene before that when he's getting into the car and he's just trying to juke out the fucking security guard. He's doing all these different things to hide himself. He put his hat down. He's walking to the car. He's
Yeah.
putting up the canopy. He's just trying to
Well,
juke him out.
it's just like that scene's so funny because it's like, yo, try your best to not show your face. It's like, what do you mean? You look like a fucking burn victim. Like you don't even have real ears. You think he's not gonna see that?
Yeah,
Like that guard should be a little more like, what the fuck? Like he wasn't bald. Like that's a bald man that walked past him. Like
it's
he
really
walks
weird.
like a fucking naked mole rat. He's like, hey, what's up, Sebastian? Like he's fine with this. Like, hey, what's up, Sebastian? How's it going? What that's not at all how you should act. He's like, oh yeah, it's been a few days. You're right. His car hasn't moved for like 3 days. You see him, he's bald now. Looks like a fucking grown up 40-year-old baby, and you're not questioning him now. Like,
Hey, Sebastian, the stress is getting to you there. You're losing your hair, losing your fucking dumbass mullet. That was actually one of the first things I said when he first appeared on screen. I'm like, what the fuck is that haircut, dude?
it's
Because he had his hair down in front of like on his forehead and shit. I'm like,
it's so
what?
bad. It's funny because like
that?
when he's at the
It's because
dinner
of bedhead because he fell asleep,
Yeah.
but it was like
when he's at the dinner scene, he looks decently good. Like his hair's slicked back. It's like, yeah, whatever. The mullet.
it looks like Kevin Bacon.
He can rock that mullet. He really can. But some scenes, man, he looks like a fucking dork. It's so funny.
It's so weird. That's the first time you see him on screen. I'm just like, he looks like a fucking Little Rascals character right now. He looks so stupid.
He does look like a Little Rascals character. I will say one thing. They talk about Twinkies a lot in the movie, how it's like his mixture of figuring things out. Little pissed off he didn't kill someone and eat a Twinkie. Little mad about that.
He ate
Should've
Twinkie
capitalized
before he ate Twinkie before he killed
Well,
someone.
that was the idea. Murder
really-
spawned by Twinkies.
They don't really say he killed her. I mean, that's one of the scenes we're dancing around. We might as well just talk about it.
The rape scene.
I mean, yeah, implied rape scene. Yes.
Well, they filmed it. They filmed the rape scene.
Oh, they
but
did.
Yeah, they say they filmed the rape scene and it was so disturbing they had to take it out because people
Good.
were like, "That's too far." And it
Good,
is.
good.
It-
You
it
don't
is
need to
too
show
fucking far.
It's disturbing enough without it, honestly.
So the character Kevin Bacon, he occasionally peeks at his neighbor who's like getting undressed and doesn't close her fucking blinds for some reason. Whatever. But as soon as she takes her clothes off, blinds close. Then apparently Mr. Horndog's always like, "Fucking, I want a little piece," and he's taking the serum, which in The Invisible Man, the whole thing is the serum drives him crazy. In this
one, it is a super soldier serum of perverts.
Yeah, in this one, you can see it that way, but they don't force you to believe that way. This time, she doesn't close the blinds that much. He gets a little peek, and he's like, "Game time, fucking raping, not cool,
Yeah.
rape bad, stop." But
Yeah,
he
that-
goes over to her. That scene is probably one of the most like horror scenes in the movie with the way it's filmed.
Yeah, because the camera work in that sequence is really fucking good.
Yeah.
It's all POV related, and it's so good.
Yeah, it sucks that it's filmed around a scene that's gonna take place with someone being raped.
Yeah,
And
because a lot of it's
uncomfortable. And
a lot of it's really fun up until the end because of the whole like him fucking with her like with the mirrors and stuff.
yeah,
But then it takes a turn, and you're like, oh, this is not fun.
yeah,
I don't like this. I mean, it shouldn't be fun at all, period, because of the fact that he's going over there, whether he's going to rape her or if he's going to be just like watching her while she's naked or something. Either way, it's bad. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
I'll say this much: it's already uncomfortable and it's already bad. There's a lot of things you can do in this movie that would make me less uncomfortable, but still hate the guy. The scene we're talking about now, he fucking chokes her before, and then it just cuts. I'm gonna assume he rapes her. If I just saw him like fucking hit her and she's knocked out, and he's like, oh shit, and he runs and nothing happens, like, he already hit a woman. I already fucking hate him, but now I don't have to think if that woman got raped. So like, she's already been sexually assaulted, she's already been abused, but I don't want her to also be raped. That would make the scene a little bit better, and still hate the character, but not like,
Yeah.
you really fucking did this. Same with the scene that when I first saw and said, I am uncomfortable watching this, and you said, me too, where he fondles the girl that he fucking hates and she hates him. instead of unclipping her shirt and seeing him do that to her, just, you know, flip a few buttons and then she wakes up so she doesn't actually get sexually assaulted, but attempted
it's bad
to.
enough.
It is bad enough. As a viewer, you can say, this fucking piece of shit. But we don't have to say, this fucking piece of shit, and then feel terrible for this woman who got sexually assaulted. It's already bad enough it almost happened, but seeing it is like, come on, I don't want to watch this. I don't want to watch this for like 2 minutes.
And like, that's the point.
Yeah,
but your mileage will vary as to whether or not you think that is a necessary decision for the character, because you, like you said, you could do that a completely different way and still achieve the same result.
Yeah.
But 99, 2000.
Yep, I agree. It's unfortunately a product of its time.
So I wouldn't say like, you know, that kind of stuff like would tank the movie. It's something that they could have just pulled back on a little bit more.
Yeah. I'll say this much.
I was actually, because I mean, I didn't even have a question of whether or not Rona Mitra got raped or not in that scene. Yeah. I was like, did she die?
Oh, they don't talk about that either. She dies. I would assume she's
dead. I'd have to assume she's dead, but like,
see, that's another thing though. Like,
they don't talk about it.
See, like, but that's it right there. Like,
all he says is he scared the shit out of her. Say he fucks
with her, like he smacks the mirror around, he chokes her, you see her hit her, and he's like, oh fuck, and then he runs away. That's a lot less deplorable than raping her and possibly murdering her. Like, I don't want to think he did that, especially knowing the next scene he kind of jokes about it with his friend, and it's
because he says all he did. He says all he did was scare her a little.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable, and he's alive.
But that's all he says. Like, it never gets brought up again.
Yeah, you don't scare someone a little when you fucking choke them. Like, at that point, he definitely, I don't know.
Yeah, that's my thing. It's just like,
I think you could have changed a few things. It would have made things easier to watch for other viewers. Yeah. You know, an attempt at something is bad enough, but actually doing it, it's like, I don't know if I want to watch the movie anymore.
Yeah, I'll say I'm glad they pulled the plug on that actual filmed scene.
Yeah,
because I think that as it stands, this scene is uncomfortable, but it doesn't hit that level where it's reprehensible or like can't watch it. Same like I really don't like the sexual assault scene with the veterinarian with Sarah. That is probably, to me, that one feels worse because you see more.
I agree. It feels worse.
It's see more of the action.
It's not worse than the other one in action, but the other one is what you think happened versus seeing it happen. Yeah.
He pulled back on that one. I wish he pulled back on the other one. I think it would have been better. It's not something that I would say is objectively bad. It's just something that, for me, I don't think we needed to go there.
Yeah, I agree. I also think if he didn't do it, his downward spiral would be more step by step and not feel like a huge jump.
And also he also wouldn't be like straight up like irredeemable.
Yeah, because
until the end. I mean, at the end, when he snaps and starts killing everybody, then
that happens pretty early on after he can't get transformed back.
Yeah.
So like, we're already at a point where we're like, well, he just sexually assaulted his coworker. I fucking hate him. I don't want him to get any happiness. So if he didn't sexually assault her, but he attempted, it's like, he's a piece of shit, but I guess I'll keep going. And it's kind of funny, the director mentioned that when he was talking about the movie with someone. He was saying, like, yeah, you know, a lot of this movie is about saying, how far are you as an audience willing to be by Sebastian's side after he does these terrible things? You know, from the get-go, I already don't like him. It's a great performance, but like, I fucking hate this character. I want him to get nothing. But he was saying, you'd be surprised how many people will just stick with him for so long before it's a turning point. And
I personally don't understand how people were stuck with him, how they stuck with him. I mean, I wouldn't say like at the beginning of the movie that he's like a reprehensible character or anything. He's just a dick.
He's unlikable.
Yeah, he's just a douchebag.
Yeah,
I mean, like, there's certain stuff like the dinner scene.
Yeah, I like the dinner scene.
Like, he's not bad in that either, and he's joking around with a lot of people about the whole like on God thing, which is a joke, but also later on becomes literal for him because of the invisibility. He can literally do whatever he wants, just like God. So he's there. I can see, I guess, at the beginning how people were like, yeah, he's a dick, but he's not that bad, but there's a turning point in the movie where I just cannot see how anybody sticks with him.
Yeah.
And after that, they don't really
It's pretty
try to
early
redeem him.
too.
Yeah, they don't really try to redeem him
Yeah.
after that point either. He's pretty much just the villain at that point, and Elizabeth Shue is the hero.
Yeah. And at the same time too, it was another attempted, well, I wouldn't say attempted rape, but it's at the very least sexual assault for him against Elizabeth Shue too.
Yeah, that was the one with the veterinarian is very uncomfortable. That one actually made me cringe
Yeah.
because there's a sound effect
Yeah.
that I didn't need. That really maybe it was maybe my TV crackled or something, and maybe it wasn't in the movie. I don't know if from your perspective, but there's a certain sound. There is a sound effect. Yeah, I don't think we needed that part. I think we could have definitely left that out, and it would have been.
It sounds almost like a blind opening up.
Yeah, I don't like it. It really bothered me, but that's the point. Just because it's the point, though, doesn't mean I really want it to be in the movie. But I kind of wanted to get to that scene because it's indicative of the whole relationship between Kane and I can't remember Elizabeth Shue's character's name for some reason right now. That sucks. It's not what it is.
I can't think of Josh Bro. Oh, his character's name is Matt, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it's Matt. But basically from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth Shue have a relationship where they dated before and it didn't work. And he still wants it to work. She does not. The whole movie, it's all about he really wants to get back with Elizabeth Shue, and he pushes it very far in trying to do that. And we talked about this today as well, that I don't think it's really love that's driving him. He is 100% just a narcissistic, he is not fit to have relationships. Let's put it that way.
I think I don't mean to cut you off. I was just gonna say I think it falls in line really well with the new Invisible Man, where it's about control.
Yeah, it's 100% about control and manipulation, and he wants to have her. He doesn't want to be with her as much as he wants to have her. It's a possession, and it's very uncomfortable, and that's the point. And again, if this all fits with the character that's set up, it's not out of character at all. He's definitely shown to be a narcissist before the serum, and the serum just makes it worse.
Yep.
It makes his
assumedly the serum. It could just be also the after effects of him being in a lab for so long. It's a lot of outside variables.
I think it's a combination of all of it, but yeah. I think that he from the very beginning of the movie, when he's looking at his neighbor getting undressed and stuff, he has this ineffective aspect to his character where he's like, man, I wish I could, have that. And he doesn't, he doesn't seem to have any desire to make effort to maybe strike up a conversation with this girl because he probably can't do that.
That's the weirdest thing, because they make him seem like he's such a boastful person, but apparently he can't walk next door.
It's kind of funny because at least people that I've known like that, a lot of them, like, they have this forced charisma, but they really have no social skills. And that's kind of what this character is.
Yeah. But, I agree, though. I really agree.
Yeah, it's like he has this kind of again, it's all performative from every aspect. I mean, he obviously is literally smart. Like, he's literally a genius, but he puts on this bravado to ensnare people, whereas he doesn't really know what to do. So now that he's invisible, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. There's nothing inhibiting him from doing the things that he wants to do in a more fucked up manner, because he doesn't understand. I don't know if he literally doesn't understand the social aspect of the things that he does, but he doesn't care about them because he's invisible. So they're never going to find him anyway. So he can just do whatever he wants. And that's kind of the part of the whole, like, him playing God and him being God. He can do whatever he wants. He's, things are just things for him to take and things for him to have. It all, the whole invisible serum thing, the whole question is posed anyways. Like, what would you do if you were invisible?
Yeah. When
you give something that kind of power to the kind of personality that Sebastian has, this is exactly what would happen.
I think it's, to be
Makes
honest,
it more disturbing.
To be honest, the question is more posed: what would you do as a man if you were invisible? Is the way it's
Yes,
filmed as
but
that?
it's also a conversation between two men
Yeah,
or a couple of men.
yeah.
But
It just comes off very much like, how much power can you abuse, and how far is the line? Like, there's a line he gives in the film that I think a lot of the dialogue in the film can be passe sometimes, very 90s cheese, but he says, like, it's a lot easier to live with yourself when you don't have to look in the mirror.
Yeah, and that really informs the whole, like, he doesn't have to follow what he would think would be a moral decision because he doesn't have to reflect upon it.
He doesn't feel like he has any, what's the word? Not side effects, but he doesn't really feel like he has any punishments. Like, no consequences. He doesn't feel like he has any consequences for his actions.
Yeah, he can run around with impunity because what are they going to do? They can't find him. The only people who could find him are the people who are in the lab.
I think it's funny to think of because, like, I never really realized how similar the 2021 or the 2020 Invisible Man is to this movie. Like,
yeah,
the
only thing about the 2021 that they're more overt about abuse and abuse culture and
the
how
entire story
and how women aren't listened to and all that stuff. Like the whole thing with him being invisible is he can make her the unheard victim.
Yeah,
and to the point that she's locked up in an insane asylum and all that stuff. Like, again, like there's the intriguing thing about the whole Invisible Man like the whole plot device of the invisibility is it really can inform a lot of different themes.
Yeah,
it's very, very fascinating, this kind of plot device in film.
I think it's so fascinating that, like, the concept of the original Invisible Man does not touch on, like, I think it might come to a lot of the director being, like, I won't say a lot of it, but, like, with him being homosexual, like, he's not going to touch on, like, abuse or anything for, like, James Whale.
Oh,
for the original Invisible Man.
I was gonna say I for some reason I thought we were talking about the 2020, the 2021. I'm like, I didn't know Leigh-Whannell was gay.
No, the original Invisible Man film. James Whale really does attack, like, the whole, like, the idea of the madman going mad because of the serum and, like, what can stop him, and it really does attack the whole thing about, like, has science gone too far? That everything does in the 1930s, pretty much. Yeah. And they stick to that. But it's so weird that ever since then, the thing that's been synonymous with the Invisible Man is just, like, a man's abuse of power. And it's a great story to be told because it fucking happens every day. I don't care who you are. It happens all the time. It'll happen to your girlfriend. It'll happen to your sister. It'll happen to your daughter. It'll happen to every female that you meet. They've had to deal with men abusing power. Try to change it. But that story's an easy story to tell, no matter how comfortable it can be. It's weird that Hollow Man really personifies that story while also being innately misogynistic at times. And that's what's been run with that next film. Invisible Man 2020 really does not have nearly anything to do with the original, which is a good thing in its film. It differentiates it, even the sequels to the original, but it has so much linked into Hollow Man. I just find it interesting, because Hollow Man is an Invisible Man film, but, it's not called Invisible Man.
They deal with a lot of similar things. I think that Invisible Man does it a little bit more subtlety.
Yes.
Because I mean, it's not new for, like, the director is known for his social commentary, and it happens in all of his movies. RoboCop being, like, one of the most prolific, one that everyone thinks of when they think of the director. But this one, out of all of his movies that I've seen, might have the least subtlety.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, again, like, they talk about how, like,
there's not a lot of subtlety in Total Recall either, though.
Yeah. But, like, what kind of, or RoboCop, honestly, but it just feels more in your face in this movie for some reason. Maybe it's because they literally talk about it. Like, it's like they have the whole, like, what would that kind of power do to you?
Yeah.
What would you do if you had the invisibility power? It's just like, yeah, I get it. That's kind of the point of the movie. So it's a little bit more, it has about as much subtlety as a hammer. It doesn't ruin it.
No.
Having that much, I mean, the whole thing, like, 90s movies are loud. They always were loud.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
This straight up fits into that. I mean, it's the time period. So putting it in context of its time, that's not unusual. It's not like there weren't movies with subtlety in the 90s. I'm not saying that, but
it's just not a lot.
Not a lot that I've seen. Yeah. But yeah, this one, they definitely get in your face about the topic. But I'm kind of glad they do, because they're not saying the things that he's he does are good. They're not saying that you should be enjoying what you're watching, because they're deliberately, some of the sequences where he's doing the most fucked up things are deliberately filmed in a voyeuristic and disturbing manner.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's the whole thing with POV shots, is you're supposed to be in the perspective of the person doing whatever they're doing. So it makes you even more uncomfortable, because as far as you can tell, it's you doing it. So I don't mind them doing the whole lack of subtlety thing, just because you shouldn't have to be subtle about these kinds of things.
No. Like, I'm very loud about saying most 90s film don't hit me the same way it hits a lot of other people. A lot of the attitude of the 90s just comes off as cliche, or just characters just do shit and they can be stupid. You'd think it's like, oh, well, you shouldn't like this film, it's super 90s. But you can understand when films come from a certain decade and act a certain way, and excuse it to in a bit, like excuse a little bit and say, all right, this is gonna happen. What more can I get? And besides that, Hollow Man has a lot of substance to it. I will say some of the stuff when it comes to his actions, they should be deemed more reprehensively or more repulsively. People like one of the other characters, Parker, he would do the same shit. He's almost like, yeah, dude, it's a fucking, who's gonna stop me?
You see, for me with Parker, it less comes down to, I think he would do the same things that he does, and more so that he thinks that's what he would do.
Yeah. It's not
because
the same
he
thing,
thinks
but
he would have the I don't want to say he'd have the balls to do it, because you shouldn't have the balls to do the things that fucking Bacon does.
Yeah.
But
it's
would
all
not.
Words at the end of the day for him. I agree.
He would. There's no way, like, that character, as the way that he's written and the way he acts, I don't believe for a second that he would do that. But he wants Kevin Bacon to believe that he would do it, because he thinks it makes him more of a man.
Yeah.
And that's really sad.
Parker is 100% the fucking dude bros you find on Twitter that brag about stupid shit they've never done before, but their cousin's brother has done it. Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's what he comes off as, and like,
I like that.
And
there's a lot of those people.
Yeah, and like, that's a real character. It's a real person that would act like that. It's scummy. It's just when he's having discussions about it, and a lot of the other characters don't have discussions about it, it doesn't seem as deemed irresponsibly as maybe it should be. Like, we can definitely assume Josh Brolin's character is not a piece of shit by the way he acts and the way he cares about Elizabeth Shue's character.
Yeah.
Her, very smart, strong woman. He's
the clean-cut leading man.
Yeah, she's fucking A-class. But
yeah,
you don't get much of the psyche of, like, I think the character is Larry, who's just, like, kind of goofing, having fun. I like him, but you don't get much about him. So you have two characters besides Sebastian, pretty much, that are real, that give their point of view. You have Matt, and you have Parker. One's the clean-cut leading man, and the other one is joking about what the fuck I would do to a woman or do with girls if I couldn't be seen. It's tough. It should be deemed more reprehensively, but at the same time, like you said, he's a real character. I'd hate to say it, but some asshole douchebag jock bros would joke about shit like that.
The character that I'm thinking of, the other character that doesn't get much development, is Janice.
Oh yeah,
the one that's peeing and he's watching her.
Which that scene can get cut entirely out.
It would change nothing if
you
remove that.
She has a joke in the next scene saying, like, yeah, I can't even deal with this shit. I can't even piss without those, like, thermal goggles. And it's like, yeah, I can believe that, but I don't need a scene to have him watching her piss, because he's there. Yeah,
if you cut that scene out and you had her drop that line, it still works.
Yeah, because it's just an uncomfortable idea.
Yeah, it makes sense. And when you think about it, in a situation where somebody turns invisible, it's like, you don't know where the fuck they are.
Yeah,
you're gonna be paranoid. That's another thing that's another thing in the movie that they do really well, is the paranoia.
Perfect.
I mean, like, you generally know when he's around.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of really cool shots where it starts out like a normal shot that you'd expect, like a normal wide shot or something, and it becomes a point of view shot. Those are the moments to me that, like, just sent me, because it is like, you don't realize that this normally you're so used to the camera just being a camera, and there being a specific way that a scene is a point of view shot, and this movie fucks with you like that. and it really adds to the paranoia where you're in certain sequences and the camera's following these characters. You're like, well, is it just the camera, or is it Sebastian? Is Sebastian following them? Is he listening to what they're talking about? Is he planning something? So a lot of those scenes, they really, really got me, because again, it puts you in the driver's seat, because it makes you feel like you're the one walking around and watching things and being a voyeur.
The camera work in this film is just so intense. It's so well done. Like
Yeah.
shots like that are things that you wouldn't think of, but it's just so well executed. You were like, holy shit, I haven't seen this before. Like there's not even the 2020 Invisible Man film, because he's not the main character. I mean, the bad guy in the Invisible Man film from 2020, he's barely ever really seen at all
On screen. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's only like
But
pretty much at the beginning and end.
you don't really get many POV shots, and if you do, you don't see him moving. It's just like when like you have a horror movie, like a slasher film, like you have some shots behind some trees or some shit to be like, oh, it's a POV, they're stalking him. They have a few shots like that, but not like moving or following as much
Yeah.
as you would think they would. But in
Yeah,
this film, it's all the time, but they're so well executed.
Yeah, he really, really uses the camera to a great effect in this movie. I love the way this movie looks. I mean, like, yeah, a lot of the like the set itself is super '90s and stuff, but there's still some just genuinely great, slick cinematography in this,
Yeah,
especially those POV shots.
we were talking about the set and like, yeah, it is super 90s. I mean, who has fucking like little handles over a fucking elevator? Like,
Yeah, oh
that's
my
so
God.
overcompensating for just a regular fucking elevator.
It's
But
so weird because the doors close and then these two fucking
yeah,
latches slide
that
down.
is most people in the 90s like, oh, well, what's gonna be cool and futuristic? It's not fucking cool. It's so goddamn dumb. It's like you have
So
T-Rex arms on your elevator. Whatever,
yeah,
man.
I just don't understand what those are for, and especially like when you're thinking about like a lab, like
Yeah.
scientific people using their brains. Why is that there? Like, what is the purpose
I'm just
that
mad
serves?
because in the end, when they get out of the elevator, I'd love to see them have to try to fucking pry them off because
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
why else are
At
they
least it
there
would
now?
at least it would have came back around.
Yeah, but no, it's
But
so
in this,
stupid.
it really is just window dressing.
What I want to bring up is that we talked about how it is a small set. You know, it's just this one lab area. As a horror film, it is the best. It's the best genre to benefit from a small set. You can
Yeah,
do so much with it. Like we talked before about like in the old dark house, how just having this one house be the setting for primarily the entire film works perfect.
yeah.
Don't
Evil Dead.
breathe. The new
Don't
that
breathe.
film
Yep.
where most of the movie is just in this one old man's house. You have
Yes.
a house or just one location be a setting in a horror film, it always seems to just work wonders because you can keep the atmosphere really thick and tense and then just explore small locations because now that entire area just feels personal. So
Yeah.
when things get broken or taken away, you're like, holy shit.
The nice thing about that is that the nice thing about small sets is that you spend so much time in the same spots that you learn the geography of the environment. So even if you're not thinking about it, even if you are thinking, like, you're just not thinking about the fact that you know the environment now, and you know where the villain could be in relation to the character that you're following. But you know the geography of the lab.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where Sebastian is because he's invisible,
Yep.
which makes it constantly scary or constantly tense and like paranoia infused, especially when they're talking about him behind his back and stuff. So
That's what
it's really smart.
That's what I find so interesting about horror films because you make any other type of film have a location where it's just one location most of the film, it could hurt it. Some dramas make it work effectively too, but like you do
Yeah.
that for an action film, good fucking luck, buddy. But even
Yeah.
even like the woods, a location like that, like the Friday films, like you keep the entire film just in a camp setting, it can still work wonders because you start to understand the geography of a camp, but just you're stuck behind a few trees you haven't seen before, you never know what the fuck is coming. Even Haddonfield for Michael Myers, like you get to know Haddonfield pretty well. It's not like you're seeing anything besides a few random houses, but you
Yeah.
never know. You turn one corner, what the hell's gonna happen?
I mean, the majority of the main action in Halloween, speaking of that, is it's like two houses
Yeah,
for the most part. I mean, there's stuff out on the streets with Loomis and Sheriff Brackett, but you know where Lori's house is in relation to, or Tommy's house is in relation to Annie's, or not Annie's, Lindsay's.
Mhm.
So you know they're right down the street from each other, so you know where everything is going on in relation to each other. So when he's killing people over there, you know that he's very close to Lori. That's the nice thing about, yeah, like you said, like you could have single location movies that don't work and really show their budget, but that's the fact that this is such an isolated film. It helps the movie be better in this specific situation, especially with, like I said, the paranoia aspect, but also reinforcing the fact that part of the reason why Sebastian is as fucked up as he is the isolation he feels because
Yeah.
he's stuck in this bunker and he cannot leave. He is there 24/7 or however many
And
days
that's
it
a
was.
huge theme in the movies because just as a person, he feels so isolated from humanity.
Yeah.
So even before the serum, like he's just like that. They show when he's in his apartment, up on the ceiling, it has a sign that says "You're
You should be
not
working.
working." You
Yeah.
know how more you're gonna segregate yourself from the rest of humanity by having a sign that says "You aren't working."
Yeah, basically he's created a situation where he is in a vacuum of social. He has nothing. He has no social aspect. Like all his social aspects are with his people at work, and even that he's a dick. So like none of them want to be around him anyway. So he pretty much isolates himself by being a prick,
Yeah, a
and
lot.
he's forcibly isolated because he decided recklessly to test this serum on himself. So basically, his no matter what, his isolation is brought on himself
Yeah.
before or after the serum.
The coolest thing that they touch upon in this film that we've already mentioned before is definitely the fact that the serum in the classic Invisible Man does drive him to go crazy. You never see the Invisible Man before the serum in that film, so we have to assume that this made him crazy because beforehand, everyone talks about how he's such a great guy, he was a brilliant scientist, but now he's fucking batshit insane. But in
Yeah,
this one, we get to see Sebastian beforehand. We get to see how he acts and the things he does. It's not that we can see him doing them, but they seem about like 3 steps farther than what he would have done. So
yeah,
they're jumps, but they're not totally insane. So you can leave yourself up to saying, did the serum make him crazy? Did the isolation make him crazy? Was he just always a piece of shit to this degree? Who knows? And that makes the question
or a
more
combination of
open-ended.
all of it.
Yeah, it makes it way more open-ended. If you're a traditionalist like me, you could say, I think a lot of it's the serum. If you like to get more into the human psyche, you could say, I think a lot of it could be the isolation factor. You never know, but that's what's so cool about it. Even with
I think
having little hints, like with the gorilla being, oh, it's been way more agitated lately in the beginning of the film. It's a great way of
yeah,
setting up this character being flawed enough to be like, he could be the piece of shit, the serum could be the piece of shit, or circumstance could be this shitty thing.
yeah. I mean, like you even have like a half measure where it's not technically the serum that is making him crazy,
Yeah.
but the serum is lowering his inhibitions, which is making him radically change personality.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways that you can take that. They don't come out and say for sure that the serum is literally driving him insane.
Yeah.
Like obviously, yeah, like you said, the whole aggressiveness of the gorillas touched upon. But again, if you can't see yourself, you're gonna go nuts.
Yeah.
So I definitely believe that it could be anything, and it
I
works really
definitely
well.
agree. I think that's what this film handles so well. That is the most subtle thing about the film in general. Like,
Yeah,
everything else is so beaten on the head, but this, you decide what you want, what you like, and that's really cool.
yeah, I agree.
Is a real pleasant surprise. You know, I don't like rape in film. I can't stand it most of the
Yeah,
time. It makes me very uncomfortable personally. And
should.
I'll say, because there's so much stuff in this film, I almost don't want to like it. It makes me feel bad for liking certain scenes. There's a fucking rape joke involving Superman and Wonder Woman, which personally
Yeah,
I should hate, but Kevin Bacon's delivery makes it funny, and the fact that nobody laughs makes it funny too, because they're like, you made a fucking rape joke, dude, fuck off. So, like, it just works. Like, I would say I should hate this film, but it just fucking works. And, like, I can't. I really enjoyed it. I had a great time.
I think that joke alone is a key supporting aspect to his just social like just
Yeah.
he doesn't understand social norms at all. He's just like, I think that this joke is funny, and no one laughs. So he's like, come on, it's funny.
How
Like what?
funny is it in just the irony of the only time we're gonna reference the Invisible Man is
Is
gonna be a fucking
Superman
rape joke? Like,
is
are you
Superman
serious?
raping the Invisible Man by accident when he was attempting to rape Wonder Woman?
We're not gonna say the joke,
Yeah, I
but
kind of just gave away the whole punchline.
good. I'd
But
rather give
yeah,
away the punchline than
I'm
say the
not
joke.
doing it verbatim.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of things that I shouldn't like about the movie, but I think it's handled well. It could be handled better. 100% could be handled way better, but it's in the fucking 90s. I can't change the decade.
So the final thing that I want to talk about is the actual climax of the film. So we get to the point where everyone's getting locked in to this bunker. They can't get out. He revokes all their clearances, so that the only person who can leave is him. And he starts picking them off one by one. And this is where I started to think, I don't know if this is a horror movie because like it's just kind of really like bombastic and action filled. It really does function like a slasher film,
Yeah,
where he's just picking people off one by one. He's even dropping fucking one-liners too.
especially in the 90s too.
Yeah, so it definitely does enter into like that kind of horror slasher territory, especially for the 90s. But the thing that I really want to talk about, because it really ties back to Elizabeth Shue's character, because we've talked about her, and we've talked a lot more about Kane, but she's really smart
Yeah.
until she's not. But we'll get to that in a second. She and Josh Brolin get locked in a freezer, or locked in a temperature controlled room that is turned into a freezer, I should say, where she can't get out because the door is shut with a bar, and because she has big brain mode, she uses a defibrillator to create a magnet to unlock the door, which is super cool because the whole movie fucking Shaw's talking about how fucking genius he is, and how no one could basically no one's smarter than me. I am the uber genius. I am God. And he left her in there with the defibrillator. So that was a really cool sequence that was very tense because you just see the temperature lowering and lowering and lowering. Brolin's already hurt because he got fucking cut up in the side with a crowbar and bleeding out in the ground, and he's going hypothermic. And I mean, obviously, I didn't think they were gonna die there or anything, but it did have me in the moment. It's very well directed and film sequence. But the thing that I do want to talk about the finale is the sprinklers.
Yeah. That's my big problem in the film.
So she's really smart. They're all really smart, apparently. And they do make a deal to show you a big deal to show you the sprinklers earlier on in the movie. So why isn't it the first thing that they did? I mean,
Yeah.
to be fair, they did have to do it in response. Maybe they weren't thinking about it in the moment because they're like, well, we have the goggles. We're good. And then he created an issue. Again, a really smart thing to do, because the whole thing's about how you can see thermals, but you can't see them optically, is him turning the heat up really high so that the thermals are obscured. Really smart. Leads to one of the most shocking moments of violence in the movie for me, with when Parker his name's actually, we've been saying Parker the whole time. His name's Carter. Whoops. But when he gets fucking
wicked funny that we've been saying Parker the whole time, though.
Yeah,
He definitely reads like a Parker.
Isn't Parker one of the characters in Alien?
First one?
I think so. I think it is.
Maybe Aliens?
I might be stupid. I don't know. It's possible. But anyways,
It's been a long time since I've seen those.
Same.
Well, I saw the first one in theaters, but that was still 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, I haven't seen Alien in a while, but
Yeah, I haven't seen Aliens in a long time.
I haven't seen Aliens in like 5 years probably. But what was I saying? When Carter dies, or when he's in the process of dying. Yeah, when Parker dies. When he's in the process of dying, I should say, because he gets dropped. I can't remember what he gets dropped on.
It's just like a fucking like.
It cuts his fucking neck open, and the amount of it's because the whole movie is bloodless up until now.
No.
It's pretty much bloodless.
I think something bloody happens in the beginning of the movie.
They show stuff with
the gorilla.
The gorilla.
Yeah.
But I mean,
eating
violent.
the rat and shit.
Yeah, but I mean like human violence, like human on human, because like all the stuff.
Yes.
The stuff with him killing people, specifically with the villain of the movie, I should say, because when he kills people, he drowns the head of the council, he breaks Sarah's neck
But
and all that stuff.
she's covered in blood. He's covered in
Yeah,
blood.
but it's not her blood.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'll say
I mean,
that pisses me off too in that scene because it's like, how the fuck did he get all that blood off him?
yeah, I don't know.
That pissed me off.
No,
Like,
she dies after Carter.
no, but still, just in general, because they're looking for him. It's like this man should be covered in blood. Like,
Yeah, but not too long after that's when they turn sprinklers on.
yeah, but he's at that point he's already got no blood on him at all.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with the blood.
Yeah,
I can't really account for that. But what I was trying to say is that Carter's like the inception of his demise, most of the murders are bloodless, and then he just gets fucking clobbered in the neck, and it just like crushes his neck in and cuts it open, big deep gouge, blood spraying out all over the place. It shocked me. It generally made me gasp because it's just that movie. It wasn't that kind of movie up until that point.
mm-hmm.
And then Josh Brolin gets his fucking abdomen cut open with a crowbar. He's bleeding all over the place.
And shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So it gets bloodier after that, but because there wasn't any really at that point, I just gasped when it happened.
The one woman gets choked out, which I appreciate the fact they made like the capillaries in her eyes like burst and everything.
Yeah,
I thought that was a cool detail that they usually don't do.
That was brutal. Yeah, that was brutal.
I love that scene too because it's in thermals where he just runs up. That's a really nice shot.
Yeah, the when he kills Parker, not Parker.
It's Parker, dude.
I'm not even trying to talk about
Parker takes
Parker.
the final scoot to heaven.
I'm not even trying to talk about Carter. I'm not even trying to talk about Carter. I'm trying to talk about Sarah. When he kills Sarah, maybe it's bad, but I was really worried that he was going to do something that was going to make me even more uncomfortable. But he just snapped her neck.
He references, I'm pretty sure, what happened when she was sleeping.
Maybe, I don't know. I just know
made
that,
me
like,
uncomfortable, but it wasn't like
he was like holding her, and I'm like, oh, please don't do anything like that. And he just snaps her. It's bad that I felt relief.
Yeah.
Because that's still fucked up. Someone's
it's murder,
dead.
But it's like
it's murder, but it's like I don't want to watch him fucking.
I agree.
Molest someone else. I just don't want to see that. So I don't know why I was worried. It didn't seem like if they did stop to do that, it would be a problem because it'd be like that does not fit with the finale at all. It's a very I gotta give credit too. It's a very urgent finale. Like it's continuously the momentum is continuous. It doesn't stop. It just keeps going, ramping up and up and up and up until they're in the elevator shaft, and there's elevators fucking falling and crazy ass shit. And he's got nitro in the oh fuck, I don't even
everything after the magnet scene happens. That's when it starts to feel more like action. I think beforehand it feels a lot more like the big finale in a slasher film, but the elevator plummeting and the big explosions, that's when it becomes like, okay, like he comes back after the whole zapping and he should be dead, and it's like,
it's like it feels exactly like Scream when what's his name, Billy comes back. Is his name Billy? His name's not Billy.
Skeet Ulrich's character?
Yeah, when he goes back and they just fucking dome him.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, that's what that felt like to me. I mean, it fit fine. I was okay with that. But yeah, that whole finale, that last part. Well, actually, before that, when she has the flamethrower, I'm like, this is giving me hardcore Ripley vibes.
Yeah, 100%. She gives me Ripley vibes the entire film.
Yeah, I was here for it. I was so cool with that. But that's when she lights the sprinklers, and I'm like, why didn't you do that earlier?
It's already too late. I'm literally setting you on fire right now. Like,
yeah. Actually, one moment of disbelief that I was kind of like, I don't know how you thought that was a good idea, was when they basically deflect the crowbar blow and it goes into the electric box, and they're all covered in water, and he's the only person who gets shocked because they would have all been zapped and fried.
No, they all jumped up at the same time. They're in the air.
Yeah, totally. But they're all still covered in fucking water.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Okay, cool. Yep.
Movie magic.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I cast a force field spell.
I didn't know we were watching Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But no. Like those are minor quibbles. Like that finale is really tense, and I was really here for it. That was a really fun finale.
I do almost wish they cut out the elevator stuff, like the final.
It is a little bit over.
It's a better finale for like Sebastian's character, but I would have rather like he starts to form, and as he's getting up again, like you brutally murder him, because like he should have a more brutal death with the shit he's done. I'd rather
Yeah.
do that, and they just crawl out, open the doors,
I just
and
know.
like
I just
it
know the
ends
nice
like
thing is.
that.
I just know the nice thing is that he's popped on the ground like a grape roasting. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I wish it was less big event and more just brutal, because he deserves a brutal, brutal death.
I was surprised by how big they went with that finale.
Yeah, it's
Like
so big.
I wasn't
It is
expecting
super
it.
90s, and like I know why they did it like that, but it's like whatever.
Yeah, I was surprised by how big they went with that because I mean, like it's a Verhoeven movie, so
Mm.
should I be
Yeah,
that surprised? I guess, but
yeah, I guess that's true.
it's just the whole movie is so unlike the rest of
I don't know.
Verhoeven's
Total
movies.
Recall's not a super big ending, big swerve.
Yeah, yeah, but like RoboCop's a pretty.
Yeah,
No, I mean, RoboCop's
it's a
ending is
big
not
idea
that
and
big.
premise, but it's not like
Yeah,
a
RoboCop's
lot
no.
on
I mean,
screen.
with the Ed 209 or whatever, there's
Okay, yeah,
some bigger aspects to it. But yeah, it definitely it felt super duper Hollywood blockbustery, and
yeah.
that is not exactly a bad thing.
It's the reason the director doesn't like his film.
It's
I
definitely
mean,
his most Hollywood film that
yeah,
I've seen for sure. It's but the finale, the very end of the finale is kind of indicative of that.
yeah.
But it still worked for me, and it was really entertaining, well shot, well edited. You
I'll
know,
say
it's the
that.
movie's edited by Mark
Yeah.
Goldblatt. He's a great editor from he did a lot of great '80s action films. I think he might have edited Commando and the '80s Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren and a lot of canon stuff. He did a lot of editing in the '80s. He's a pretty good one.
I'll say that when I saw the whole elevator collapsing scene with all the action going on, I just thought of like this scene definitely exists because the first Mission Impossible happened.
Yeah.
That's just how I felt. It felt so overblown and like this shit is wild, and I'm like, aren't these scientists that like? Okay, whatever,
Yeah,
man.
bro. But did you see that fucking Brolin's got a body? No,
You
he's
mean duct
fucking
tape
strong.
man?
Well, at that point, yeah, he's duct
Yeah.
tape man. But
Look at duct tape man climbing. His abdomen's not ripping open. Definitely not.
yeah, but you can also just say adrenaline.
Sure.
People lift cars.
It's the
People
90s and
people lift,
2000s. I don't care.
but humans lift cars with
Yeah, but
adrenaline. So you
adrenaline
never
can't
know.
last that long. Like a lot of the shit he
Uh,
does, it's like he teeters. It's like ah ooh. It's like if you get a huge burst of adrenaline and you do some crazy shit, and then like you get out of a situation, fine. I'm fine with that. But it's like very inconsistent. It's like how damaged is he? Like I saw you fingering his hole there, and like that man's he's moving a little
nah,
bit
bro.
too limber for a fingered
Nah,
hole boy.
nah, bro. You didn't watch enough MacGyver as a kid.
Yeah, more like
Duct tape solves
MacGruber.
all the problems.
Yeah.
They solve every problem, including bleeding.
All problems aside with some of the stuff in the finale that are very nitpicky, obviously, as a viewer.
Yeah, 100%.
Still
Very
a solid
entertaining
finale.
finale.
Super solid.
Yeah, this I was just. I mean, like we're just gonna get into final thoughts, but like this is a really big surprise. I was
Yeah.
expecting. I was not.
And
I
we
wasn't
have to say,
sure.
we joked about doing it. Like, it
Yeah,
was
we were
clear
like,
cut we were
should
going to
we do?
do 2020 Invisible Man. And I was like, I don't know. Like, we watched it not long ago. And I
Yeah,
said to you as a joke, like, why don't we just do fucking Hollow Man? And we both laughed. And then
they were like,
doing it again like a few days ago, I was like, well, why don't we do Hollow Man? Like, we both never seen it. The whole
yeah, and
point
it's
of
on
doing this
Hulu.
is like we get to watch some new films and get new experiences. Let's watch fucking
Yeah,
Hollow Man, and we had a
yeah,
great time.
I had a blast. I mean, I had a blast with some of it. Some of it was very
Well,
uncomfortable. It was
the
by design.
experience was a good, exciting feeling.
Yeah,
After I
because
watched, after we both watched The Mummy, we were like, okay, I need something. I'm a little low on some endorphins right now.
I mean, hey, I enjoyed
You
Wolfman. You
liked
did not
Wolfman. To
as
me,
much.
it was cool ideas,
So
but it wasn't like a pleasant surprise. It was like
yeah,
I'm a little let down, but I'm not disappointed. I
yeah,
liked it, but I didn't love it. This was like I went in there with low expectations, and I came out saying that was a good movie. That was a really good movie with some shit I don't like, but I'm not supposed to like it.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with
It's
it.
not. It's not like it's a movie that's passing it off, saying like, "Hey, isn't this sexy?" It's like it's not sexy. It's disturbing. It's
Sometimes
purposely
it feels a
disturbing.
little too sexy, but I agree.
I think that the only one that like it feels like they're trying to be like, "Hey, isn't this sexy?" is the dream sequence until it isn't anymore, and that's just kind of dream logic.
Yeah.
A lot of time, there's just like it's like, oh, it's gonna be like a wet dream, and then it's not a wet dream. It's very
Yeah.
creepy and disturbing. So, but yeah, no, I the past couple of first time watch movies that I've watched recently, like Mortal Kombat and Without Remorse, I've either disliked or been really middle of the road on. So when I pop this in, I'm like, please give me something.
Yeah.
And I really, really, while we've been talking about this, I like the movie more
Yes.
than I did before.
I'm just more and more
really
impressed.
This. Yeah, I really enjoyed this movie as much as you can.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'm not over here saying like, yeah, everything that happens is awesome. Fuck no, he's a terrible piece of shit, and like, I
That's the
wish
point.
he didn't do half the shit. But that's the point. Some things could be less intensified, but as a film, it was enjoyable. I had a great time getting through it. The performances by most of the actors and actresses are fantastic, and I just felt locked into my seat a lot of the time. And what more can I ask for watching a movie?
I agree.
I don't
rating for
give
it.
final thoughts. We just kind of did.
Yeah, I mean, that was my
Yeah. Like,
point I wanted it to be. So,
yeah.
yeah. If you were going to give this a score, what would you give it?
I don't want
How
to.
you're in my
I don't
you're in
want
my
to rate
you're
a
in my
rate
shoes this
movie
time.
as a high score. I would say, as a film, it's enjoyable. There's tough stuff to get through, but I think there's a lot of things that keep you coming back to it. I don't know how high the rewatchability is, but as a first-time viewer, I'd say it's worth checking out. I'd probably give it like 7.5 or an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
Because it's just as a new experience, I'm happy. So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, here's a lower score. I'm surprised. A surprise is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's bullshit. Surprise is not always a good thing, but a pleasant surprise is always a good thing.
Yeah, of course. When we started this episode, I was hovering around at probably a 8.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna go 8.5.
that's fair.
I think I'm gonna go 8.5. I was almost ready to give it a 9, but I want to see it again before I give it something
That's
like that.
my thing, because
So
the whole rewatchability thing, it's like maybe if I rewatched it, I'll feel a little lesser on it.
I think I could. I'm not worried that I can't rewatch this because there's certain movies where I'm like, I don't know if I could rewatch this again.
Yeah.
This is still I wouldn't say it's a light film, but it is definitely a film built on entertaining
Yes.
as a horror film with a lot of disturbing aspects to it that are well thought out and intentioned. So I could see myself rewatching this. I'm probably gonna look for the Blu-ray and purchase it to add to my collection. But I was not expecting anything out of this movie because I knew a lot of people who like spoke really highly of this movie, but they're people who grew up with the movie, people who probably saw it in theaters, and they're like, "Yeah, man, it's a fucking great movie." It's just like we'll see.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about like this is not a movie that like it's very clearly supposed to be an Invisible Man movie without actually being an Invisible Man movie. So I'm like, is this gonna feel like a knockoff? What's this gonna be like? And it's definitely its own thing.
Yeah.
Like it takes stuff from Invisible Man, but it definitely does its own thing. And it left me guessing a lot. There are things I couldn't tell you what was gonna happen really a lot of the time. So I was very impressed with this movie. It's a movie that I can see myself revisiting, and who knows, my score might change up or down. Who knows? But I think Verhoeven's just there's no one like Paul. There's nobody like Verhoeven, and he directs movies, and he didn't write this one, but the way that he handles his movies is in a manner that no other filmmaker does. And even though this is his most Hollywood movie, it's still definitely a Verhoeven movie.
For sure.
So I really dug this movie. I'm glad we watched this one.
Yeah. That's all I have to say on it. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I kind of hope you guys check it out too, because I was pleasantly surprised. Mike's pleasantly surprised, and You know, if you have two people going in with poor expectations, you're walking out with a bit of a shock. That's always a cool thing. Always something to look forward to. So
It's on Hulu, so watch it.
yeah, that's true. Hulu.
Yeah, it's on
So,
Hulu. If you have Hulu, you can watch it for free.
can't really plug a lot of the things we've watched because we've had to watch it on like home
Disc
release or anything.
Our own. Yeah.
Yeah, this is easily accessible, so that's always cool. But yeah, join us again. Next episode, we're gonna go a bit more classic, just kind of like we did with the Mummy. But don't worry, this one's better. So I'll see you later. Have fun. Thank you so much again, and I'll catch you later. Bye.